Amina lived in the heart of Mbale City, a place where hope and hardship walked hand in hand. At just 19 years old, Amina had never known luxury. Her days were filled with endless chores, dusty streets, and the heavy weight of expectations. She was known in her neighborhood not for her beauty, though she had plenty, but for her quiet strength and humility. Her mother, Mama Jalila, was a sharp-tongued woman in her early 50s, hardened by years of struggle. She ruled their small household with discipline and tradition. Her biggest worry wasn't food or money, it was finding a husband for Amina before the girl grew too old, as she often said. Amina didn't dream of a prince. She only dreamed of freedom, freedom to choose, freedom to grow. But in Mbale City, dreams were luxuries the poor couldn't afford. That morning, Mama Jalila called Amina inside with a firm voice. Her face was tight, her hands resting on her wide hips. Amina obeyed, wiping her hands on her dress before entering. Inside their cramped home, Mama Jalila stood beside Mr. Bako, a respected elder from their community. He was short and stocky, with graying hair and a thick walking stick. His eyes were kind but serious. "Amina," Mama Jalila said, "you are no longer a child. You will marry Tunde. The decision is made." Amina's heart stopped. "Tunde?" she asked softly. "Who is Tunde?" Mr. Bako stepped forward. He is a humble young man. Quiet, respectful. He has no family, but he works hard in the market. He will not shame you. Amina looked at her mother, pleading silently. But Mama Jalila avoided her eyes. "You will do as I say," she said. "We don't need love, we need survival." Amina didn't argue. She knew her mother would not bend, and Mr. Bako's presence meant the decision was final. As she walked outside into the open air, her vision blurred with tears she refused to let fall. In the back of her mind, a name echoed, Tunde. She had seen him once or twice in the marketplace, always quiet, always alone. He wore worn-out clothes and carried crates of fruit like a servant. Was this to be her fate? A life beside a man of mystery and dust? Still, deep inside, something in her heart remained calm. She didn't understand it yet, but fate was already moving in ways no one could see. The following week passed quickly, and the wedding was arranged in the simplest way possible. No white dress, no music, no dancing. Just a gathering of neighbors under a borrowed tent, with faded plastic chairs and lukewarm soft drinks. When Amina finally met her groom face to face, she was struck by his silence more than anything. Tunde, now with a neatly trimmed beard, stood beside her without looking directly into her eyes. His body was lean and muscular, clearly shaped by hard labor. He wore a plain white shirt and brown trousers, clean but old. His shoes were dusty. He only spoke when necessary. "Thank you, Amina," he said quietly after the short ceremony. "I will try my best to be good to you." Amina nodded politely, unsure of how to respond. There was no hatred in her heart, only confusion. Who was this man she had just married? After the ceremony, Tunde led Amina to his home, an even smaller house than she had expected. Located on the edge of the city, it had one room with a broken wooden door and a small garden behind. Tunde laid out a mat and offered her a seat. "It is not much," he said, "but it is honest." Inside the house, there was only a mattress on the floor, a water bucket, and a small stove. No television, no fridge. Just simplicity. Amina sat silently, looking around. But something felt off. For a man this poor, his space was unusually clean. Organized. Even the curtain was neatly sewn. There was a calm presence about it. She didn't know it yet, but Tunde was hiding more than she could imagine. That evening, Tunde prepared a simple meal of boiled yam and sauce. He cooked silently while Amina watched from a corner. There was something strange about his movements. They were graceful, like someone who had once learned etiquette, not a street vendor. As they sat to eat, Amina asked softly, "You don't speak much. Why?" Tunde looked at her and gave a small smile. "Words are expensive where I come from. Silence taught me more." Amina tilted her head. That answer stayed with her. Later that night, when Tunde stepped outside to take a phone call, his voice low, in a different language, Amina peeked through the curtain. For just a moment, She caught a glimpse of something shiny in his bag. Gold? Or was it just a trick of the light? The following morning, Amina decided to visit the local market to buy some tomatoes. She wore a faded blue wrap dress with a simple scarf over her hair. As she moved through the dusty alleys between stalls, she couldn't help but notice people whispering and stealing glances in her direction. She stopped at a vegetable stall owned by Mama Kimi, a robust woman in her late 50s, with a wide frame, deep wrinkles, and skin the color of roasted coffee beans. Her head was wrapped in a colorful green and red kitenge scarf, and her voice boomed even when she whispered. "Hey, Amina," Mama Kimi said with a tight smile. "So you're the wife of Tunde, the quiet one, eh?" Amina nodded politely. "Yes, Ma. We married just yesterday." Mama Kimi leaned in. "Be careful, my child. That one doesn't talk much, but strange things surround him. He once paid a mechanic with a gold ring. Who does that around here?" Amina's heart skipped a beat. A gold ring? Back at home, Amina couldn't get Mama Kimi's words out of her head. As Tunde left to fetch firewood, she found herself pacing the room nervously. Her eyes kept returning to the wooden chest in the corner, the one Tunde had told her not to open. Curiosity overpowered her hesitation. Slowly, she approached it, heart pounding. Inside, she found something shocking: a pressed white designer shirt, a black silk tie, and a wristwatch so elegant it sparkled in the dim light. Beneath the clothes, a leather envelope containing official papers, documents with international company logos, and the name Tunde Adebayo listed as the chief executive officer. Amina stepped back in disbelief. Her hands shook. Who exactly had she married? Minutes later, Tunde returned carrying a bundle of firewood on his shoulder. He noticed the open chest immediately. His face tightened as he dropped the wood gently and stepped inside. "I told you not to look," he said, voice calm but firm. Amina stood still, holding the shirt to her chest. "Who are you, Tunde? You're not poor. Are you a criminal? Or a liar?" Tunde looked into her eyes and sighed deeply. "I didn't lie. I only wanted a life where I could be loved without status, without money. I've seen the ugliest faces of wealth, Amina. I came here to find truth." She stared at him, overwhelmed with emotion. She wanted to be angry, but part of her felt strangely honored. The following day, word of Tunde's secret had already begun to spread. Amina was walking toward the well to fetch water, carrying a metal bucket on her head and wearing a plain yellow dress and simple sandals. Her steps were firm, but her heart trembled. As she passed through the village square, she heard the murmurs and felt the piercing stares. "There goes the rich man's wife," one woman whispered. "She only got lucky. Poor girl pretending she's special now," said another. Amina lowered her eyes but kept walking. A part of her wanted to shout, to explain, but she knew nothing she said would change their minds. Her life had turned upside down overnight. Back home, Tunde sat on a stool outside, repairing a small wooden stool. He wore a sleeveless white shirt and dark trousers. His hands were calloused from work, but his mind was heavy with thought. Suddenly, Chief Bako, the village elder, appeared. Chief Bako was a man in his 70s, short and stocky, with grey-bearded dark skin, deep frown lines, and a tall carved walking stick. Dressed in a majestic indigo bubu, his presence commanded silence. "Young man," Chief Bako said with authority, "is it true that you came here hiding wealth and identity?" Tunde stood slowly, bowed in respect, and answered, "Yes, Chief. But not to deceive. I needed to find truth, far from luxury." The elders studied him closely. "And now that your secret is out, will you still live like us?" Tunde nodded without hesitation. "Yes, sir. I married Amina for love, not image. I want nothing more than to build a life here, with honesty." That evening, Amina, still feeling the weight of the villagers' judgment, sat outside the house on a low bench. The air was cool, and the sky glowed orange with the sunset. Tunde came to her side. Without a word, he sat beside her, handing her a cup of cold water. For a moment, they both sat in silence. "You regret marrying me?" Tunde finally asked. Amina looked at him, her eyes moist but strong. "No. I regret not knowing how much pain you carry inside. Tunde took her hand gently, and they watched the sun disappear behind the hills. There were no more secrets between them, only the quiet bond of two souls finding peace. Several weeks had passed since Tunde's secret was revealed, and life began to stabilize. But this morning, the sky turned gray, heavy with thick clouds that signaled a coming storm. In the small clay house, Amina stood by the window. She wore a blue cotton wrapper dress and had a soft brown shawl over her shoulders. Her gaze was fixed on the sky. Outside, the village moved with haste, chickens were ushered into shelters, laundry was pulled from lines, and people hurried home. Tunde was helping an old woman cover her thatched roof. He was wearing a faded grey t-shirt and rolled-up trousers, his bare feet splashing in the growing puddles. Suddenly, a bolt of lightning flashed, followed by a loud clap of thunder. Rain fell in thick, fast drops. As the rain intensified, Amina rushed out with a large piece of cloth to shield Tunde. Despite his protests, she wrapped it around his shoulders. "I told you I'm not fragile," Tunde said with a chuckle. "And I told you I care," Amina replied, her eyes fierce. They both laughed, standing soaked beneath the rain. But then, something unexpected happened. A small child ran toward them, crying. It was Yero, a 6-year-old barefoot boy with dark skin, a shaved head, and wearing torn red shorts. His tiny hands trembled. "The roof is falling. My mama is inside," he cried. Without hesitation, Tunde grabbed Amina's hand. "Come, we must help." They ran through the storm toward the boy's house. They arrived to find Yero's mother, Mama Sade, trapped beneath a collapsed bamboo beam. Mama Sade was a thin woman in her 30s with dark caramel skin, short twisted hair, and wearing a soaked green wrapper. She winced in pain, but her eyes lit up when she saw help arrive. Without thinking, Tunde lifted the beam with all his strength, allowing Amina to pull Mama Sade to safety. Afterward, they brought her to their home. Amina dressed her wound, while Tunde brewed hot tea. That night, as the storm finally quieted, Amina sat beside Tunde, drying Yero's feet and wrapping them in cloth. "You didn't need riches to be a hero," she whispered to Tunde. "And you didn't need a mansion to be my queen," he replied softly. They smiled at one another. For the first time, not even the loudest thunder could shake their peace. The sun rose brightly over the dusty streets of the small African town. Birds chirped in harmony while the village buzzed with preparations. Today was special. Amina was to be officially wedded to Tunde. Their home was filled with laughter and aroma. Amina, wearing a beautifully patterned orange and gold wrapper dress, sat quietly with her hands folded, deep in thought. Her mind wandered back to the trials they had faced together. Despite knowing Tunde was once poor, she never imagined the hidden truth that was about to surface. Outside, Tunde stood near a papaya tree, wearing a fresh white kaftan with silver embroidery. He had been waiting for this moment for so long, but now, he held something in his hand, a letter from his late father's lawyer, revealing that the transfer of his billion-dollar inheritance was complete. The wealth had remained hidden in his late father's offshore accounts until the paperwork cleared. Today, he was no longer pretending. As the women began singing wedding chants outside and preparing Amina for the ceremony, a black SUV pulled up unexpectedly in the village square. From it stepped Mr. James, a 50-year-old tall and broad-shouldered man with light brown skin, a bald head, and a long navy blue agbada. He was Tunde's father's lawyer and trustee. Villagers gathered curiously as Mr. James walked straight to the family compound, holding a briefcase and flanked by 2 assistants. Inside the compound, Amina's father, Papa Daughter, a 60-year-old man with dark brown skin, a small grey beard, and wearing a faded green tunic, looked confused. "What's all this now?" he asked. Tunde, still calm, stepped forward. "This is the truth I must reveal before I marry your daughter." Mr. James opened the briefcase, showing the documents and account proofs. Gasps filled the air. Tunde was not only wealthy, he was the sole heir to an international real estate empire. Later, when the guests had gone quiet and whispers filled the air, Amina asked Tunde for a private moment under the neem tree near their hut. There, away from the crowd, she stood facing him. "So, all this time, you knew?" she asked softly. "I didn't want you to fall in love with my wealth. I needed to know if your heart chose me, the man, not the money. Tears welled up in Amina's eyes, not from betrayal, but from relief. And I did. From the first day you brought water to my sick mother. From the time you stood beside me in the rain. Tunde reached into his pocket and pulled out a small box. Inside was a simple but elegant gold ring. No secrets left, Amina. Only love and truth now. She nodded, and they embraced, the wind dancing around them like a blessing from the ancestors. True love is not measured by wealth, status, or material possessions. It is rooted in character, kindness, and sacrifice. Amina, a young woman forced into marriage out of necessity, could have rejected Tunde, believing he had nothing to offer. But instead, she embraced humility, resilience, and compassion. Her reward? Discovering that the man she loved in poverty was, in truth, a man of immense wealth and integrity. This story reminds us to look beyond appearances and never judge someone's worth by what they have today. The most valuable relationships are built on trust, sincerity, and patience. If this story touched your heart, share it with someone who believes in love beyond money. And don't forget to subscribe for more powerful life stories that inspire and transform. Thank you for watching.